We are less than 6 months out from the midterm elections, 169 days until Americans go to the polls, and the signs for Democrats are increasingly ominous. An NBC News poll this month found that only 39% of Americans approve of Joe Biden's job performance, while 56% disapprove. It's Biden's lowest approval rating since he took office. That same poll also found that 75% of Americans think the country is on the wrong track, numbers that haven't been seen since the GOP orchestrated a government shutdown in 2013. Brutal as they are, these poll numbers fit in with an historical pattern. After a president is elected, their party generally loses congressional seats in the next midterm. It happened to Obama in 2010 and in 2014, and it happened to Trump in 2018. It happened to George W. Bush, too. Not in 2002, the first post-9/11 midterms, which were very much the exception to the rule, but in 2006, the first election after Bush won a second term. So is there anything Democrats can possibly do at this point to avoid a shellacking, as Biden's former boss once put it? Some Democrats say the imminent demise of Roe v. Wade could mobilize their base to come out and vote in their droves in November. NBC News polling after the leak of that Justice Alito draft opinion overturning Roe showed that nearly two-thirds of registered voters oppose the end of Roe v. Wade. But there's another possible turning point that could be round the corner, because in early June, the January 6th committee is going to launch a series of televised hearings. The chairman of the panel, Democrat Benny Thompson, said in late April that the public would see new evidence and hear from new witnesses who could shed light on how the insurrection really came together. A point that committee member Congressman Jamie Raskin also made late last month.
You asked me to tell you a little bit of what we found so far?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, I would encourage people, you're going to have to watch the hearings, because the hearings will tell a story that will really blow the roof off the House.
This isn't just political theater. This is urgent, because if Democrats do lose the House and Kevin McCarthy becomes Speaker, this could be the last word out of Congress on the insurrection, or at least against the insurrection. And certifying a presidential winner in 2024 who isn't a Republican, good luck with that. We often say on this show how an unpunished coup is a training exercise. Well, the US conservative movement went for extra authoritarianism training to Hungary last week. Yes, that's where a special edition of the Conservative Political Action Conference, or CPAC, took place. I kid you not. A forum at which our former president heaped praise on Hungary's current authoritarian prime minister.
CPAC Hungary. We are very close, as you know, all of us, to Viktor Orban. He's a great leader. We are looking to stop a lot of the problems that are going on in the world, including in the United States, socialism and even communism. Just keep up the good work, keep up the fight, and I'll see you soon.
It wasn't clear whether Trump's warm words or those of Mark Meadows, Tucker Carlson, and the other American right-wing speakers at CPAC Hungary extended to conference speaker Zsolt Bayer, a co-founder of Orban's far-right party, who has called Jewish people stinking excrement, derided Roma people as animals unfit for coexistence, and used the N-word to refer to black people. But if you're still not convinced of what's at stake in these upcoming midterm elections, or what has become of the Republican Party ahead of them, just take a look at what Donald Trump posted this weekend on Truth Social, his right-wing answer to Twitter. There, the last president of the United States, and possibly the next president of the United States, recirculated a post by an account calling itself MAGA King Thanos. That post simply said, quote, "Civil War." Yes, the former president of the United States shared with his followers the words, "Civil War." This should be terrifying, but it shouldn't be surprising. We were told what could happen if Trump was not held accountable for his role in the events of January the 6th, 2021. Listen to these words from one of the House managers, Democrat Stacey Plaskett of the U.S. Virgin Islands, during Trump's impeachment trial early last year, following the insurrection.
The world watched us, and the world is still watching us to see what we will do this day. The extremists who attacked the Capitol at the president's provocation will be emboldened. There are quite literally standing by and standing ready. Donald Trump told them this is only the beginning. They are waiting and watching to see if Donald Trump is right that everyone said This was totally appropriate.
Today, 15 months on, the far right in America is still standing by, preparing for ethnic conflict, for civil war. And they seem to be getting encouragement from the authoritarian leader, de facto leader of the Republican Party. And Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett, who you saw there, joins me now. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. The Guardian is reporting that the January 6th panel will be putting on at least 6 public hearings next month, some of them in prime time, all of them highlighting potentially illegal activities by Donald Trump and his team. As someone who helped manage the last Trump impeachment trial just weeks after the insurrection, how much hope do you have that these hearings will move the dial? Because many would argue, well, most people's minds are made up one way or another by now.
Yeah, I think that the trials will support some individuals to think differently about what happened on January 6th. Also, remember that during the time that we did the impeachment, those impeachment trials were live on broadcast at the time that was happening during the day, which really played to individuals who were already interested. This is going to be prime time. All America is going to be watching this. And many individuals who are getting their news from one particular outlet, which doesn't share the totality of the truth, may be able to see what really happened on January 6th. But I think it's a confluence of a bunch of issues that are going to get people to the polls. I have not lost hope. We see that there have been record number of individuals voting in Georgia in early election. Early voting usually favors Democrats. More individuals came out in Georgia for early voting in this election than they did in 2020 when they put 2 Democrats into the Senate. And so there is an opportunity for us if we stay focused. And the message to me, Mehdi, is that we as Democrats are standing on the wall. We are standing at the gate, trying to keep the marauders from coming to destroy our democracy. And we're doing it with a thin line of Democrats in the House and even thinner in the Senate. And we need more reinforcements.
I hope you're right about people discovering the truth, people learning the truth about what happened on 1/6, and, you know, especially those who are glued to Fox on a daily primetime basis. I would point out to our viewers that reportedly, and we haven't had this publicly confirmed, but only two of the 6 hearings are going to be in primetime, not all of them, which is a little disappointing. But you're right about the threat, and we live in a time of rising political violence too, and I have to ask this question to you as a Black woman in particular. What was your reaction to the racist mass murder in Buffalo last week?
Well, I was just devastated for that community, for those individuals. I'm a Black woman. I'm a Black mother of 4 Black men and 1 daughter. And it's terrifying for many in the Black community and terrifying for good Americans everywhere. We have to remember that individuals like my colleagues, Elise Stefanik, Matt Gaetz, others, these are Republican members of Congress, one who is in leadership, are espousing QAnon white supremacist theories on their Twitter accounts, on the floor of the House. They are the ones who are inciting this. They are giving it life, and individuals like Kevin McCarthy are not stopping them. And so the threat is coming from the very top, all the way down to individuals like the person who had the gun in his hands.
Regular viewers of this show will know how strongly I agree with you on that. And I'm so glad you said that, because one of my complaints since Buffalo has been that senior members of your party are not calling out Republicans by name. To hear you say Stefanik Gaetz, I've said those names. Other journalists have said those names. Not enough people in your party have said those names. I know you took to the floor last week and also put up their tweets in a speech you gave, and we played some of that on the show last week. But let me ask you this. Why aren't Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and Jim Clyburn and Steny Hoyer and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, why aren't the most senior elected Democrats in America calling out these Republicans who push QAnon, racist, white supremacist talking points? Why aren't they being called out by name? We're less than 6 months away from midterms. Shouldn't the American public know that there are people in House leadership who are pushing great replacement theory?
Well, I know that last Friday at the press conference that the Speaker Pelosi had, she did talk about the replacement theory and talked about the fact that it was brought and espoused by members in the Republican Party who are members of Congress. And I can't speak to as why they are individually not doing it. But it's a responsibility of all of us. Of you, Mehdi, thank you so much for doing it, of myself and others. I can't say those individuals' names on the floor, but I could put their tweets up, and I can definitely say their names on your show. And so I think that's what's going to happen. We also have to show as Democrats the things that we are doing and what they are not. They're complaining about inflation. The Republicans are complaining about inflation, and it is real, but they are not supporting us when we have bills that come to the floor to stop gas price gouging, when we have bills on the floor to stop the baby formula shortage. They are complaining, but they do not care. They just want to rouse people because they do not have a solution. Their only objective is power.
Indeed. And then you look at the Republicans and conservatives who spoke at CPAC Hungary last week, as I mentioned a moment ago. There are some in your party who always want to talk about bipartisanship. And I just wonder, how do you do bipartisanship with a party that looks to Viktor Orban as an example, that is okay speaking alongside far-right demagogues who call Jews, quote, stinking excrement? How can we talk about bipartisanship when that is the other party in American politics right now?
It's difficult, but many of us are trying. I'm a member of the New Democratic Coalition. I'm in leadership there as a pragmatic, moderate Democrat. And most of us who come to Congress, on my side of the aisle at least, are there because we want to legislate. Because the people who have sent us to Washington, the people of my district in the Virgin Islands desperately need support, need a hand up, need a platform at which that there can be equitably treated so that they can grow their own economies, so that we can make a future for our children. And to do that, we need multiple members, not just from our side, but from the other side to support those measures. I have several bills that I have been able to find one or two Republicans to support me in it, and sometimes in the most unlikeliest of members, and that's our job to seek them out. But as you can see from House votes over and over again this Congress, it is purely the Democrats and maybe 4 Republicans who are voting with us. And then when it gets to the Senate, because we only have 50, we cannot often pass the measures that the American people have sent there for.
You barely have 50 if you're really counting Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. Let us talk plainly, Congresswoman. This November, your party looks headed for a shellacking, to borrow Barack Obama's 2010 phrase. What is the plan? Not just to try and save your majority, which looks more and more unlikely by the day, but to preserve democracy if you lose the House to Kevin McCarthy, who's not going to certify a Democratic win in 2024, is he?
Well, our plan is to continue to message, to be laser focused, for us to be out in the streets. Jamie Harrison and those in the DNC are doing a tremendous job with continuing to organize Democrats and get them to the polls. We have a very exciting candidates as well as incumbents who are doing their job in their districts to try and get people out and to let them know what the Democrats are doing and what we are fighting for. And also, Mehdi, we need individuals like you to remind people what the Democrats, the bills that we do bring up, the votes that we do take, and the Republicans who are trying to obstruct everyday Americans from being able to get ahead. We have to remind our base what we have been able to do and what we are about.
It's funny that you should mention... It's funny that you should mention bills. On last night's show, I went through some of the bills that Republican members have blocked in the House over the last 18 months. And it was interesting that my team and I had to put that list together because it doesn't exist. The Democratic Party have not been very good at messaging on what's been going on in Congress so that people don't know who is to blame for what's going on. And I had former HUD Secretary Julian Castro on the show last night. Have a listen to what he said Democrats should do now. If you had to give Joe Biden one piece of advice, or Chuck Schumer or Nancy Pelosi, on how to turn things around, what would it be?
I'd say be bold. Make the distinction clear. Sell what Democrats have provided, what they've done for the American people, which is a lot, and also make these divisions the difference on this extremism that Republicans have embraced, from white nationalism to serving only the rich and powerful big corporations. Make that very clear for the voters.
Be bold. Be bold. He's right, isn't he? What do you have to lose now by going big on Democratic priorities. For example, why not forgive student debt, as the president said he would do? What's the worst that could happen now, given you're headed for defeat anyways? Why not just be bold, throw caution to the wind?
I wouldn't say that we're headed for defeat. If we follow your advice, Mehdi, then, we would stay in the majority, right? But I think what we are going to do is we are being bold. We are reminding that we are the party that made sure that people were able to keep their jobs during the COVID pandemic. We were the ones who made sure that the vaccines got out. We were the ones who put in the policies that allowed our children to be able to go back to school. We were the ones who put food as well as the child tax credit that supported individuals. And the Republicans are the ones, although they say that they are pro-life, they are not a pro-life once that child is born. They have not supported that. And many of us are being bold. As you saw me go on the floor, I think you're going to continue to see other members doing that. And we're going to make a stark contrast between what we are about, the American people, and what the Republican Party is about, which is power for themselves.